My name is Maya. I'm 34 years old and I live in Portland, Oregon. I'm married to a man named Daniel. He's 37. We've been married for 9 years. I work as a nurse, taking care of people when they're at their weakest. We also have a son together, or at least that's what everyone believes. His name is Noah. He's 8 years old. Daniel loves us more than anything in this world, me and Noah both. He's a kind man, a devoted father. He trusts me completely. But I've been carrying something inside me for years. A secret so heavy it feels like it's crushing my chest every single morning. And if Daniel ever finds out, it will tear our entire world apart. Before I met Daniel, I loved someone else. His name was Ethan. Dark hair, striking green eyes, 26 years old, and impossibly charming. He was my first real love. We told each other everything, our dreams, our fears, the future we imagined together. I truly believed we'd spend our whole lives side by side. But our families couldn't accept us. Different backgrounds, different beliefs, too many walls between us. One day, Ethan simply left. He shattered my heart into pieces. I cried for weeks, unable to stop thinking about him, but I never told my parents the truth. They just wanted to see me move forward. That's when they introduced me to Daniel. Daniel was everything a good man was supposed to be: gentle, hardworking, dependable. He had a stable career and a steady heart. My parents adored him instantly, so I said yes to marrying him. I tried so hard to move on, but somewhere deep inside, Ethan was still there. I missed him more than I ever admitted out loud. I never told Daniel the full truth about my past, and worse, I never fully cut ties with Ethan either. Years later, our paths crossed again. We talked. We remembered everything we used to be. That night, I felt lonely in a way I couldn't explain, and I made a mistake I can never take back. We crossed a line we shouldn't have. It was only one night, but that single night changed everything. A few weeks after, I found out I was pregnant. When I told Daniel, his whole face lit up with joy. He wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "We're finally going to be parents." I smiled back at him, but inside I was terrified. I had no idea whose child I was carrying, his or Ethan's. Still, I said nothing. I let Daniel believe the baby was his. He was so loving, so proud through every step. He never missed a single doctor's appointment. He held my hand through every contraction during labor. When our son was born, Daniel wept with happiness. I cried too, but not only from joy. I cried because of the truth I was still hiding from the man who loved me most. Daniel adored our son with his whole heart. He was an incredible father, changing diapers, feeding him at 3 a.m., reading him bedtime stories every single night. Noah loved him back just as fiercely. Their bond was unbreakable, and every time I watched them together, guilt tore through me. I kept telling myself I should confess, but fear held me back. What if Daniel left us? What if Noah lost the only father he'd ever known? Ethan never called again. He eventually married someone else and disappeared from our lives completely. So I stayed buried in the lie. Years passed, and Daniel and I raised Noah together, wrapped in love neither of us questioned. Then one afternoon, everything began to unravel. Noah was riding his bike outside when he was hit badly in an accident. We rushed him to the emergency room. He was losing blood fast and needed a transfusion immediately. The doctors asked Daniel to donate. Then they came back with questions. "Are you certain you're his biological father?" Daniel's face went pale with shock. I watched fear creep into his eyes. I froze completely. That night, we sat together in silence until I finally told him everything. I told him about Ethan. I told him about that one night. I cried and begged for forgiveness. Daniel didn't yell. He didn't say a word at first, but I could see the devastation written across his face. Finally, he looked at me and said, quietly, "I gave that boy everything I have, my name, my love, my whole life, and what you gave me back was a lie." His voice barely rose above a whisper, but every word landed like a blow. I tried to explain myself. I told him I'd felt lost and broken back then. I told him it was a mistake I regretted every day. He didn't respond. A week later, the school called us. Noah had gotten into a fight. Another boy had told him, "He's not even your real dad." Noah punched him. When Daniel asked why, Noah said, "Because he lied, you're my real father." The pain had reached our son now too, and it destroyed me completely. That same day, something even worse happened. I was waiting outside the school to pick Noah up when a car pulled up beside me. A man stepped out. It was Ethan. My heart stopped in my chest. He walked toward me, staring straight at Noah, and said, "Maya, I know he's mine. Give me back my son." I froze. How could he possibly know? I couldn't even speak. Ethan didn't wait for an answer. He showed up at our house that very night and spoke with Daniel directly. He demanded a DNA test. He said he wanted custody of Noah. He said he had rights. Daniel stood there in silence, barely beginning to forgive me, and now this. Ethan told Daniel he'd been watching us for a while, that the moment he saw Noah he simply knew. He was furious and he said he'd take this to court. Daniel stood frozen, clutching a photograph of Noah in his hand. Ethan called his lawyer right there on the spot. I was trapped between two men and one boy caught in the middle. One man had the blood, the other had years of love. Ethan wanted to prove a biological fact. Daniel had already lived the truth for 8 years. The DNA test was arranged. Ethan filed the legal paperwork. We were going to court. I watched my entire life crumble in front of me. I wanted so badly to protect Noah, but it was already far too late. Everything was exposed now, out in the open for a judge and strangers to decide. In the courtroom, Ethan presented his evidence, messages, photographs, and the DNA results. The judge listened carefully. Ethan stated he wanted full custody. Daniel had no paperwork proving anything biological, but he had something else entirely. He stood up and said, "I raised Noah. I taught him to ride his bike. I bandaged his scraped knees. I read to him every single night of his life. I am his father in every way that has ever mattered." The judge turned to look at me, and I knew it was my turn to speak. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I stood up and said, "Yes, Ethan is his biological father, but Daniel is his real father in every sense of the word." I told the judge that Daniel had been there for every moment, his first word, his first steps, his first fever in the middle of the night. Ethan had never been there. He left after a single night together and never looked back. Daniel stayed through everything. I admitted I had made a terrible mistake, but Daniel never had. The courtroom fell completely silent. Ethan lowered his head. The judge paused for a long, heavy moment before finally saying, "Custody remains with the man who raised this child." Ethan walked out of the courtroom without another word. Daniel reached over and took my hand. He didn't say anything, but that simple touch carried more hope than words ever could. I felt a small piece of peace return to me for the first time in weeks. Daniel and I began going to therapy together. We talked through the past, faced the pain head-on, and both of us cried more than once. He told me he still loved me, but that he needed time to heal. Noah didn't understand everything that had happened, but he could feel that we were trying. Slowly, piece by piece, we started to heal as a family. I cooked his favorite meals again. He started smiling more. We began taking evening walks together like we used to. Love was returning to us in small, quiet fragments. It wasn't easy, not even close, but we kept choosing each other anyway. One evening, Daniel looked at Noah and said, "No matter what, I'm your father." And in that moment, I finally believed that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild everything we thought we'd lost forever. Today, we're still healing, one day at a time. Daniel is still here. Noah is happy. And I've finally learned to live without secrets. I've learned that lies can break even the strongest hearts, but the truth, no matter how much it hurts, is the only thing that can truly heal them. Daniel forgave me, and that forgiveness remains the greatest gift I have ever received in my life. We live in the truth now. Noah knows his whole story, and he knows, without question, that he is loved. When I look at Daniel, I see strength. When I look at Noah, I see hope. Our family isn't perfect, but it's real, and to us, that has always been enough. We walk forward together, through the pain, through the love, through the truth we finally chose to face. If you were standing in Daniel's shoes, and you discovered that the child you raised with your whole heart didn't share your blood, would you walk away, or would you stay for love? Tell me in the comments below. And if this story touched you, hit like, drop a comment, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more.